Now, there's been an absolute bugger load of fresh new smartwatches launching in 2021 to the point where occasionally I have to wear 2 or 3 on my wrists at once and look like a complete Dilbury, or even more like a complete Dilbury. And one of the latest ones to hit the UK is this bad boy here, the Polar Ignite 2. It's launching this month for 199 quid with a strong emphasis on fitness. So though the feature set isn't completely there and there are some little issues that keep me from 100% recommending it. Well, I've had it strapped to my arm for just over a week now. Here's my full in-depth review, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do plug subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers. So first up, at just 35 grams, the Polar Ignite 2 is crazy light. You can have this thing strapped to your arm all day long and no worries. You'll completely forget that it's even there. That's helped along by the fact that it's definitely one of the most compact and slender smartwatches that I've had strapped to my arm for quite some time as well. So definitely good for more feminine wrists, like my own. You can pick the Ignite 2 up in a small selection of colours to suit your own personal tastes, and apparently that's a stainless steel bezel, although it does feel suspiciously plasticky to me. This here is the champagne model. As you can see there, it's got a gold bezel. The rest of the chassis is white, and you've got a matching white strap as well. The straps are definitely comfortable enough for all day wear and every day. You've got a smooth fluoroelastomer material on the underside and a textured finish up top, and those straps can be quickly and easily swapped out for any other 20mm versions just with a quick pull of this little switch around back. You can get a variety of other straps direct from Polar for the Ignite 2, including one with Swarovski crystals embedded in it, if you want to look like super bling as you're hitting Costa for your Frappuccino or whatever. And personally, I've got to say, I'm not a massive fan of the aesthetics of this smartwatch, so I'm not really sure that slapping a whole bunch of bling on it is really going to help. So far seems reasonably rugged though, no scratches on that display unlike the Oppo watch or around the bezels or anything else either, and it's IP rated for water resistance as well, so you can take it in the drink, do a good bit of swim tracking. Now, you've got a proprietary OS here on the Polar Ignite 2. You can actually set it up and start using it immediately without connecting it to a smartwatch, but to unlock most of the features, you will want to download the Polar Flow app from the Google Play Store. I've got to say, much like the watch itself, it's not the most attractive effort I've ever seen in the world, but it gives you a nice concise overview of all of your main stats, including how many steps you've taken, how many calories you've burnt off, how well you slept. And I do like the clock style presentation on the main screen, which gives you a brief overview of how active you've been throughout the day, your sort of key heart rate measurements, stuff like that. Now back to the watch itself, and what you get here is a 1.2-inch circular TFT screen, but as you can see, it's not actually a perfect circle. It's got that flat tire approach that was popular back in the day, where the bottom is actually cut out. And what you've got down there is a good bit of branding, which I think is, again, not exactly helping the aesthetics at all. It's a 240 by 240 pixel resolution, and again, despite the fact that it's quite a small screen, some of that text is rather blocky, I have to say. And as it's a TFT screen, not an AMOLED, those colours don't really pop like they do on a lot of rivals. Now, the default watch face for the Polar Ignite 2 is this analog effort, and frankly, it is ugly as sin, and also it manages to get in the way of the actual information as you're flicking through all of the various watch screens, because those hands never go away. So what you'll want to do straight away is dive on into the settings and change that to a digital setup if you don't want to be constantly annoyed. And then you've got a very small selection of different options there. I usually just go with the symmetry option. And I found that this was a much better setup overall, because then you don't have hands getting in the way of the rest of the text. Frankly, the level of customization on the Polar Ignite 2 is very weak compared with a lot of rivals. You've got the handful of sort of different options for different watch faces, and that's pretty much it. Rivals like the Huawei watches and even the Oppo and the Realme watches, which are actually quite limited, again, compared with a lot of other smartwatch options, are definitely better in that department. And because it's a basic TFT display rather than an OLED panel, of course, there's no always on display option. Thankfully, you do get a raise to wake feature, which tends to work pretty well. You don't have to do dramatic raises of the arm in order to get it to work. Otherwise, it's just a quick tap of that little button there to wake up the watch as well. The interface itself is fairly straightforward. You just flick left and right to flick through all of the different, basically, stats screens, and you can decide exactly which screens pop up as you're flicking through as well. So if there's any that you find a bit pointless, you can get rid of them. The sensitivity, again, isn't fantastic. Sometimes it'll take a couple of swipes to get to the next screen, but you sort of get on a roll eventually. And as you can see there, you've got all of the main stuff. You've got sleep tracking, fast access to your stats, including your cardio shenanigans. You can have a look at what the weather's going to be doing. You can access a small selection of settings by swiping down the screen. As you can see, a flight mode and alarms as well. You can basically customize that to a small degree. Again, swipe up in order to access your notifications. You can check out the start of a message. And then once you're done with it, you can either archive it, and there is a reply option, but I found that seems to do bugger all most of the time. As far as the fitness tracking goes, you get most of the usual features you'll find on smartwatches, including built-in GPS for tracking your motions. You've got that heart rate monitor as well. So this can track your pulse for over 24 hours and give you maximum and minimum values. There is no SpO2 monitor though, so if that's going to be a deal breaker for you, you'll definitely have to look elsewhere. One of the features I really like on the Polar Ignite 2 is the Fit Spark, which offers you generally a small number of different daily workout suggestions based on your personal preferences, your weekly progress, how well you've slept, all kinds of different factors. It's definitely a good way of trying out different kinds of exercise. If you get bored of doing non-stop squat thrusts or whatever. So lots of HIIT stuff. It tells you exactly what you need to do, and with little illustrations to show you how to do it. Some of them, like the one-armed push-ups, definitely a little bit beyond me personally, because I'm a fat sack of lard. And you get a little buzz when each minute is up. You get to rest for a little while and then straight on with the next one. If you want to track a specific exercise session, that's nice and easy. Just tap this button. The start training option pops right up. Just give that a little tap, and then you can basically select whatever kind of exercise you want. Group exercise, strength training, you got swimming, indoor running, outdoor running. It's far from a comprehensive selection of different sporty efforts, but most of the basics are covered there, and you do have other outdoor and other indoor to basically generally cover the rest off. And you can check out how your last training session went through the actual app itself once they're all synced up. Otherwise, via the watch, you can see how your heart fared, how many calories were burned, all that good stuff. Besides the fitness tracking, you've got a handful of other options as well. So for instance, there's the Serene feature. And this is basically the exact same as every other stress busting or relaxation feature you'll find on a smartwatch. Just got to keep nice and still and then do exactly what the Ignite 2 tells you. Breathe in, calm yourself down. You've also got the obligatory stopwatch and timer functionality as well, which is always handy when you've got a roast in the oven. You've also got the media controls, but you can't actually store music on the Polar Ignite 2 for listening to whenever you want. It only pairs up your smartwatch. And I did find this doesn't always play well with Deezer. For instance, sometimes you have to actually load up the app on your phone for it to actually do anything. But more often than not, it does generally do its job, and you can skip tracks. You can pause whenever you like, and also fiddle about with the volume. The Polar Ignite 2 also has your usual sleep tracking on board as well. I found I actually did a pretty good job of this. While quite a lot of other smartwatches will think I'm having a kip, but I'm actually just slumped on the sofa not moving at all, the Polar Ignite 2 seems to pick up on exactly when I was actually resting and not. It gives you a pretty good breakdown of how good your sleep has actually been. So definitely a good one for anyone who's obsessed with that side of things. Unfortunately, however, there's no NFC support here on the Polar Ignite 2, which is a convenient feature that a lot of other smartwatches at this sort of price point offer, so you can't use it for your contactless payments. Of course, another big factor into whether a smartwatch is going to be good for you or not is the battery life. And here on the Polar Ignite 2, they reckon you get around 5 days of use per charge. I find it's closer to actually 4, maybe 4 and a bit. So that's definitely better than the likes of the Apple Watch and the Google Wear OS watches, which you're typically charging at least once a day. About the same as some of the Amazfit watches, you tend to get a few days out of those. But if you are looking for even longer battery life, the likes of the Huawei watches I would highly recommend, which tend to go for at least a week and a half, even with all the features, including always on display active. So right, there is my full final review of the Polar Ignite 2 smartwatch. And for 200 quid, I've got to say some features are sorely lacking. The lack of an SpO2 monitor, NFC, stuff like that was definitely a real shame. I'm not overly sold on the aesthetics, and the menu is a little bit clunky and ugly and not very customizable. And that is a shame, because I really like some of the features, like the Fit Spark is a great way of getting you motivated, getting you exercising and sort of changing up your routine. The sleep analysis is really, really good. And the everyday fitness tracking, like the heart rate monitor, the steps track, all that sort of stuff, seems to work just fine. I gotta say though, as usual, it comes down to the fact that you can buy the likes of the Huawei Watch GT2e for a fraction of the cost of this thing. It looks better, it's got more features, the battery life is longer. Yeah, but that's what I think. It'd be great to hear your own personal thoughts down in the comments below. Please do poke, subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a fantastic rest of the week. Cheers everyone, love you.